Hope is a funny thing. Most people think of it as soft, sentimental, the kind of word you stitch onto a pillow or print on a poster. But if we're honest with ourselves, in divided times like these, hope becomes something much harder, sharper, almost stubborn. It shows up when the world feels tilted, when people retreat into their corners, when distrust hangs in the air like a fog, and still there's this quiet force inside us insisting that something better might be possible. Not guaranteed, not easy, but possible. I've always believed that's what keeps a democracy alive. Not blind optimism, not some denial of the challenges we face, but this deeper resolve to keep moving forward together, even when together feels harder than it used to. The question is, in moments like this, when the world feels fractured, what does it really mean to choose hope? If you look at the early decades of this 21st century, you see a time defined by tension and transformation. People connected by technology, yet drifting apart in spirit. Families arguing not over values, but over realities shaped by different screens, different stories. Whole communities wondering whether anyone in power sees them or cares. You see economic shifts that leave folks anxious, climate pressures that intensify uncertainty, disinformation that spreads quicker than truth, and cynicism that spreads even faster. And all of that has a way of testing the bonds that make a society feel whole. But history reminds us that this isn't the first time hope has been asked to carry more weight than it should. Time and again, when ordinary people lifted their heads and stepped out of fear, inch by inch, choice by choice, movements were born. Not because conditions were comfortable, but because hope, grounded in truth and courage, became a catalyst. It's the fuel that allowed justice to inch forward, even when progress seemed painfully slow. And if you listen closely, beneath all the noise today, you can still hear echoes of that same instinct, that same human need to believe our future is not predetermined, that we can shape it together. When I think about hope, I don't think of campaign slogans. I think of moments when it didn't come easy, when I was organizing on the south side of Chicago, knocking on doors in buildings where the heat didn't work and opportunity had skipped entire blocks. Hope wasn't some grand idea. It was the simple belief that tomorrow might be a bit better if we worked at it. I think of the elders in those church basements, folks who had every reason to give up, but never did. They taught me that hope is a discipline. And later in the White House, you learn pretty quickly that hope requires a backbone. It means sitting in the situation room, weighing impossible choices, and still believing diplomacy has a chance. It means knowing that progress may take longer than your term, longer than your lifetime, and pushing anyway. And sometimes it means accepting that you won't always get it right, that leadership is as much about listening as it is about directing. There's a humility in that. A reminder that the work belongs to all of us, that I was never the source of hope. I was a symbol of what millions of people believing together can accomplish. And if I'm honest, that belief kept me going on the days when the world seemed intent on proving otherwise. Hope, in that sense, isn't naive. It's not ignoring the enormity of the task. It's recognizing it and choosing to rise to meet it. It's the courage to face hard truths without letting them harden your heart. And in divided times, that courage becomes even more essential because hope is one of the few bridges strong enough to connect people who disagree but still care about the common good. Democracy depends on that bridge. It depends on citizens who understand that unity doesn't mean uniformity. It means holding fast to a basic sense of solidarity, the idea that for all our differences, we're bound together. Our democracy is a living project, shaped not by the loudest voices, but by the persistent work of hopeful hearts. And that work becomes a moral test. Can we resist the temptation to retreat into fear or resentment? Can we build a future not because it is handed to us, but because we choose deliberately, repeatedly to bend the arc toward justice? That's the paradox. Hope is both fragile and fierce, but without it, the very idea of progress collapses. And so, as I sit with this moment we're living through, I'm reminded that the hardest times often reveal something important about who we are. Hope is not blind, It's not passive, it's active. It demands participation in our communities, in our politics, in our shared humanity. It asks us to imagine better, even when uncertainty tries to pull us in the opposite direction. And maybe that's why, despite everything, I remain convinced that hope still has power. Because I've seen what happens when people choose it. I've seen the improbable become inevitable through steady, stubborn work. And I believe that even in divided times, we can still choose light over darkness, connection over contempt, the future over fear. So the question we have to ask ourselves is this: what kind of society do we want to build together? What responsibility do we bear for making hope real in the lives of others? And when the world tests our resolve, as it surely will, what choice will we make?